If you're a cyclist who is on Strava, on YouTube, on Instagram, you surely have come across the term Zone 2, Zone 2 training, Zone 2 ride, and you may have already asked yourself, what the hell is Zone 2? And there's a certain Dr. Andrew Kogan who has defined 7 training zones, which he basically divides all of your performance output. And this I have pulled from Training Peaks because Dr. Andrew Kogan is cited there all over. So let's check them out. We have the power-based training zones after Kogan, so the Kogan power zones. We have the level, the name, the average power, which is really important. Average heart rate we don't really check out for this video. Perceived exertion we don't really give a lot of attention either. Description is also important, so you get an understanding about the 7 zones. So what's important to know is that this table goes after power, which means your functional threshold power, also called FTP, and you may already heard that term as well, which is the power on the bicycle that you can sustain for about an hour, so theoretically speaking. And in order to know that power, you'll need to do an FTP test, which normally is a 20-minute all-out test. So for 20 minutes, you'll give everything you've got on the bicycle, outside or inside, and then once you have that 20-minute number, let's say you have 350 watts for those 20 minutes. First of all, congratulations, that's not too bad. Then you calculate it times 0.95 and you have your threshold power, which in that case would be 333 watts, which is quite a decent threshold, to be honest. Of course, those are absolute watts, then you have to put them in relation to your body weight, so you get watts per kilogram. But if you weigh around 70, even 65 kilograms, this is really a strong FTP. Of course, if you weigh 90 kilos, watts per kilos would go down. But anyways, that's for another video. Let me get back to the chart. Right here we have the power, so your threshold power. Let's say you have those 333. I'm going on to the zone 2. The famous zone 2 is the endurance zone, 56 to 75% of your FTP, and this is your all-day pace, or classic long slow distance, also called LSD training. Your fatigue is generally low, but it may rise periodically to higher levels. Example given when climbing. Then what's really important here is concentration is generally required to maintain effort only at the highest end of the range and or during longer training sessions. Breathing is more regular than at a level 1, but continuous conversation is still possible. And that's where the opinions may take different routes. Because if you check out Ryan Gibbons from UAE Team Emirates, and who just joined a little track for this season, he talks about zone 2 training at UAE Emirates, which is pretty interesting. And he says it's not at all pleasant, and normally you don't really want to speak, so you don't really want to have conversation about it, which is also why zone 2 training can often be lonely, because you need to maintain the effort. You need to stay in that zone. 56 to 75%, that's not a whole lot of room. You can't just soft pedal. You will have to stop at red lights, etc., at turns, I don't know, which why it's mostly better to ride alone. That's why also a serious structured training can really get a bit lonely. I have an example for myself. I recently did a 5-hour zone 2 training. The first 2 or 3 hours go pretty well. Then you fuel again, because you're really using your engine there. You're really depleting yourself of everything, of fat, of carbohydrates, and fluids, of course, also. And you're starting to sense it. And at the end, you're really quite fatigued if you really stay in the zone. And it really requires a lot of concentration, in my opinion. You can't, as I said, soft pedal. You can't really think about anything, daydreaming, etc. You always need to a little bit keep your head down at your bike computer, have those numbers, check those numbers regularly. It really helps if you have a computer who has colors who indicate a zone. So for instance, Wahoo will indicate your zone 2 blue, dark blue. So if you see the screen is dark blue, you know you're fine and you can just keep riding at that pace. It's also complicated if you have a lot of mountains. In Switzerland, we have a lot of mountains. Luckily, I live in an area where it's quite flat, so I can just go on for like 100 kilometers easily and it will stay mostly flat. If I go in the other direction, it will kick up after like 10 minutes of riding only. And of course, climbing up a mountain will be fine for staying in zone 2, especially if you have the gears for it, if you have a nice low gear. However, once you're up there, to go down, and if you go down, it's really quite hard to maintain that zone 2 power. You have to pedal quite hard to stay in it, and it's easy to over pedal and then you go over the zone, and it's actually quite dangerous as well. You can just go downhill in zone 2 be fine. You'll have turns, you have traffic, and you'll learn pretty soon that it's quite hard to ride mountains if you have zone 2 training. In my opinion, just stay on a flat course, stay outside of towns, check your routes if you have a lot of turns or small roads, and also check your routes if you have a lot of traffic or you can anticipate a lot of traffic and really try to avoid these. And also here in the chart it says, but complete recovery from very long workouts may take more than 24 hours. I can confirm that. If you do 5 or 6 hours in zone 2, next day you'll probably feel really fatigued, and it take more than 1 day to recover. And the most important question for today is, of course, why is zone 2 such an important workout, such an important training? Because it builds your base fitness. What that means is it builds your base fitness so you're fit to do really specific hard workouts. Because if you don't have your base, if you don't do your zone 2 training, you won't really survive your high intensity interval training, your threshold training. You'll be dead in the evening and you'll need like 1 week to recover. So the zone 2 is the base that basically keeps you alive and keeps you stable for those really hard workouts that really builds the specifics. It increases the mitochondrial density, and if you know, they generate most of the energy needed to power the cell's reaction. And of course our body is made out of cells, and each and every one of those needs power, and I think it would not be a bad thing to have a better density of mitochondria. Your cells have more power for its reactions, of course, well explained in like a bit biological terms, but you get what I mean. It also improves fat utilization and preserves glycogen, which also is nice because, of course, threshold training and anything above uses your glycogen stores at a much higher rate, of course, than zone 2 training. It also increases lactate clearance capacity. And that's also a really nice thing to have if you're a cyclist, because it means that you can get rid of lactate more efficiently. And if you do a race or if you do a really hard workout, lactate accumulates quite quickly. And if you can get rid of that more efficiently and quicker, the better. So you won't have as fast of a fatigue than maybe the other guy that is racing against you if he has lower lactate clearance capacity. So this is really a key to athletic performance, because every athlete who performs, who works out, accumulates lactate. Some do more than others, of course, naturally. Maybe they are naturally gifted and have a better lactate clearance capacity in the beginning. But of course, zone 2 trains your capacity. So zone 2 really important. And if you've done zone 2 training on the bike already, you will maybe know, if you've done it right, that it isn't really pleasant. Sometimes you have the heart rate up to here. If it's a day on which you are really fatigued, or you haven't had a nice sleep, you didn't eat well enough, you didn't eat the right thing, something's just off. I had days in which my heart rate would almost go to the next zone, if you consider my heart rate zones, which left me actually quite frustrated, but there will be days like this. But in general, it's not really pleasant because you need to maintain your concentration on the power, on the zone. Also, if you have a shorter session and you can really get near the upper end of the zone 2, it will of course be harder, will even be less pleasant to be having conversations, especially complex conversations. Also, as I said before, zone 2 can be a bit of a lonely workout if you want to do it effectively. If you want to stay in your zone 2 power, it's really quite hard if you ride with other people who may want to have a nice social ride, push a bit on the climbs, but then chill in the flats and on the downhills, maybe grab a coffee. All that will really hinder you to stay in the zone. So if you have a zone 2 training, really it's better to do it alone, or with the people who have really the same fitness state as you. So I think I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and let me know in the comment section below if you have anything to say, anything to ask, or maybe you want to share your experience with your training plan, with your zone 2 training. That would be quite interesting. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.